I look at the faces of my fourth grade students and they look sad and they look tired. They've seen it on TV and heard adults talking about it. It's May 24th, 2022, the day of the Uvalde shooting. I think back to 10 years ago, 2012, when I began working in education as a volunteer tutor at an elementary school program in Los Angeles. It's the year of the Sandy Hook mass school shooting in Connecticut. I remember hearing the news that day and being beside myself with shock and grief and fear. Am I making the right choice to work at schools? But I tell myself, we can't live in fear, and I continue my path working in education. I think back to 2017. I've been working as an assistant teacher at a Los Angeles public elementary school. I'm supervising my kindergarten class on the playground. Earlier, we had a classroom practice drill for an active shooting situation if it were to happen. And now I watch the kiddos play tag and draw with chalk, rainbows and stick figures with smiling faces. They are so carefree. I'm scanning the playground. The drill didn't cover what to do if we were outside. We are surrounded by a high lock chain link fence, trapped in like in a cage. It's becoming harder and harder to shake the fear that a shooting will happen anywhere at any time, harder and harder to not live in fear. Since the pandemic, I teach fourth grade reading and writing classes on Zoom. In the morning, I heard the horrifying news of Uvalde, and I cry, the type of cry where you can barely breathe. I think of my own students, their hearts so full of wonder, their whole lives ahead of them, and how that innocence and potential has been stolen from kids their very own age. It's nearing class time. I have to pull it together. We're reading a book about a magical tiger and a little girl who remains hopeful when the tiger's powers can't make her wish come true. But hopefulness has eluded me, and I find myself struggling with today's lesson on hope, the one that I had made, the one that I had brought in. And unlike in our usual classes where my students dive right into discussion, now they don't. I need to do something to uplift them, to uplift myself. How will we survive all that is happening in the world without hope? To prompt discussion, I ask, what gives you hope? Silence. I can't let them down. I start throwing out some things of my own, ones that I know they will relate to. Dogs give me hope. Ice cream, shopping, my friends. They start to be a bit more engaged, and it's time for the writing portion of class, and I instruct them to write to the prompt, what is hope? Silence. They stare at me with blank eyes, and even muted on Zoom, their exhausted sighs are audible. I can't let them leave here hopeless. I suggest we write something together. They unmute. They say they like this idea. And the writing process is slow going, but by the end of the class, together we write. Everyone has hope. You may not always find it, but keep trying. And when you do, make it your own. And I see the innocence and the wonder return to their eyes. And I feel it too.
Okay. Thanks, Erica. Why are you smiling?
I don't know.
No, I mean, it's good. Smiling is good. I'm sorry.
It's good that I'm smiling.
I think so. I mean, why not?
I think so.
I would have reframed that comment not to why are you smiling, but I would have said, you're smiling. See, that's better. See, I'm always thinking about stuff like this. I obsess, Erica. I obsess. I have a question, and then sort of Yeah, we'll take it from there. I'm not interrogating you or questioning you as much as I want to know. Why did you give a trigger warning on that? What was triggering, do you think, maybe?
I think that the topic of school shooting is really just can be really hard. Like there are days where I can't hear it, So someone, I think people are really upset about it. And I just,
Yeah.
I think
Yeah,
it's a
yeah,
hard topic and it's so raw. Another one just happened and
yeah.
everything's so chaotic and we're all just trying to like live right now. And then these like crazy interruptions of reality can be like, no, I don't want it. You know what I mean? It's like alcohol pouring on wound.
Did you see me drinking my bourbon? Is that why you said that?
I'm so jealous.
Mm.
I wish I could handle my liquor.
If you knew the very scant amount of money I paid for this alcohol, you would not be jealous. You would look at me in a very different light. It's fine. I'm fine. It's okay. We're allowed to have a couple. We're adults, right?
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for telling that story.
Thanks.
And I know you got to go, and this isn't really like set up for feedback, but if you can hang out after, and I know you probably can't, then we can talk about it a little bit. I just want to roll through the stories.
Mhm.
Erica, are you in a story show?
Yeah, I have that show that I host and produce once a month. So
Oh,
my friend's picking
wonderful.
me up at like 6:10. So I have like another 45 minutes.
All
Did
right,
you hear
cool.
that
You
motorcycle?
look very lovely. I hope it goes really well.
Is it called Revealed? That one?
Revealed.
That's the
Mm.
name of the show. What are you? Are you revealing anything there tonight?
That Spotify made me a playlist called Grandma's Home.
Okay. Hmm.
I'm just gonna probably talk a little bit. I usually riff between people's stories off of
That's
like,
good.
yeah, pick something out of what they talked about and like laugh or relate to it. So yeah, we'll see. I don't have anything really planned. So that's kind of what's fun about it. Like I'm not that impulsive. I'm not a like, well, I am impulsive, but I'm not like an exciting, adventurous person. But on this, I kind of take a chance because I don't pre-plan as much.
I
Don't
love
keep
that.
asking me questions. I had like a pot of coffee. I'm gonna keep talking.
All right, done. Goodbye. Thanks. Next up, another interesting transition. I love these moments. Let's go in the order that people said. So we've got Jeremy, then Angela, then Sharon, maybe, then Marie, and so Sharon, Marie, and Linda. I like it. No pressure to tell a story. But the majority of the people here are telling a story. That's kind of cool. Jeremy, I don't think we've ever met other than a brief messenger exchange. Yeah. Anyway, are you in North Carolina? Oh, you're muted.
Sure am. Yes, I am.
Awesome.
A-
Awesome. Do you?
Asheville.
Oh, you're in Asheville. You got plans Thursday night? Not asking you on a date. Don't worry.
Dinner plans. Yep.
Because the
Someone we know is in the Grand Slam
there's a
in
Grand
Asheville
Slam Martha out
Thursday
there.
night.
On Thursday.
He's
Oh,
wearing a
man.
yellow hat.
Not cheap though. I don't think those tickets are that cheap. I'm not a little pricey. Anyway, I'm glad you're here. Do you want me to spotlight you, or you like the way it is right now? Sort of make you all big, or like, is this cool?
I'm fine.
All right, cool.
As long as y'all can hear me, that's all that matters.
We can hear you, and I'm going to mute myself. And whenever you're ready, man, let's hear your story. And thanks.
Okay. The year is 1995. I'm in, what was that? I was 7th grade. And just the year before, I had returned to Virginia after 2 traumatic years of living with my father's parents. That rendered me a stuttering, asthmatic, freckled-faced, nappy-haired, chubby kid from Kentucky. So I had it all going for me, and moved to a new town, into a new school. First year was okay. Thought I was making some friends, and I came around to 7th grade, and I heard this one kid named Herrick lived over towards the school, like a 20-minute walk from my place. Heard he was having a party. And me being the See, I guess at that point I was like 12. I already knew how to get some party favors. And so I thought I'd bring a little something to contribute to the party. Being that most of the people I knew were going, I didn't get a direct invite, but I figured it was safe because most of the people there I thought were my friends. So off I go, walking down the streets, and I get within a block of this house party of Herrick's place, and somebody out in front of the house spotted me, and they instantly run inside. And as soon as they do, you hear the music go off, watch the blinds go down, I hear the latch on the door thrown shut. Thought it was really weird. I was like, what, did they think they saw a cop drive by or something? Like, what the fuck's going on? You know, and so I walk up to the porch, I'm like, hey guys, it's me, let me in. I got something to share. Not a single voice, not a single response. Everyone just hid from me. And with everything I had survived from those previous years, deal with my father's alcoholism and everything else, you know, my grandparents' abuse, this was the single heaviest blow of rejection I'd ever been served. By all these peers, these kids who I thought were my friends, completely shut me out. I was crushed. So I took the 40 I had in my pack, and I drank it to myself, rolled myself a blunt, and I tried to drown my sorrows. But the following week, I show up to school, and the kids all like catch me out of the corner of their eye and they start snickering. And it was around that time I began to wear the mask that told people, if you're not going to respect me, you're going to fear me. I became real mean. I turned into the bully. Said, if I can't trust you to respect me, then I'm going to give you 10 reasons to stay the fuck away from me. And that began my rap sheet of suspensions, inevitable expulsion later on in high school. And still to this day, I still got trust issues. You know, wondering what people's true intention is for spending time with me, whether they want something from me or whether they really want to get to know me, whether they value me beyond more than what I can offer, you know, as a human being. And so after all the years of therapy and all the things I've done to work through that experience, I can look back to those individuals and say, thank you for giving me an opportunity to recognize the type of energies around those who are not worth my fucking time. Thank you for helping me to recognize the disingenuous ones in the crowd. Thank you for helping me to sniff out the phonies. Thank you for helping me to raise my awareness, my sensitivities to who I can call my tribe. You know, so as deep as that wound cut, I was able to transform that into some pretty potent medicine that I use to carve out my community through who I choose to let in, you know. And that's a wrap.
Thank you, my friend Jeremy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
I
Yeah,
love. Go ahead, sir.
I saw the prompt for nothing like scripted or written, because I've got some spoken word, but I saw that this wasn't the place for
Oh,
it. So.
I mean, it's more story, right? Straight up story.
Mm-hmm.
I think the only thing I wrote down, just to be clear, I mean, I don't know if that it was, what did I write down? It's been a while. It's been a minute.
Yeah, I pretty clearly remember like nothing like scripted or a performance style,
All right. Well, moving forward, if you come back, that's fine.
Cool.
But it's more story straight up than we've had people here do a little poetry or spoken word, but it's really story stuff. But here, unlike other places, like this is just an open mic where you can read. A lot of us perform where you don't have an opportunity to read, and I do think it's more powerful. But we're just playing here. We're just sharing stuff.
Awesome.
So yeah. And
I appreciate the invitation.
Of course, man. And I love honest stuff. And that was super honest. And beyond, I'm not commenting, but I'm just going to, and I am going to say one thing. I'm going to break my own rule. And I'm going to say, I love honest stories, but I really like it from dudes. It's 2023. Maybe I shouldn't have made an assumption there. I think it was a safe assumption. I hope. Seriously, I just realized I can't say shit like that, but whatever.
Yeah, I've worked as a mentor for many years with adolescents and young men, young adults in recovery programs and local networks, and being able to teach or provide an example of what vulnerability looks like, being able to tell the stories of like, look, I've experienced my own flavor of that kind of pain that you might be going through.
Yeah.
So to helping them relate, helping build that rapport and that trust, amongst men of all ages,
Yeah. Great, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the opportunity.
Of course. All right, I'm gonna move along here. And people put stuff in the chat. As if you've ever been on Zoom, you probably know that's a thing, but check it out.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly kind things. I can't guarantee someone might not slip in something weird or mean, but it's unlikely. Angela, we're going to move to you. Do we only have one of you now, or did you get rid of the other one, or are there two of you? Okay.
Yeah, just one of me now.
Good. All right. I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to play with it. I'm going to just leave it on now. No spotlight. Just it's a little more communal that way, if you're cool with that.
Sure, if people want to, they could put it on speaker view if they want to make.
Yeah, exactly. They can manipulate it on their end. Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Whenever you're ready, let's hear your story, Angela, in California.
So good evening, everyone. Hello. It's good to be here. I met Sean just last week for the first time at the 99-second concert. So I saw on his Facebook page you all were gathering tonight. So I wanted to tell you a scar story. And I also work with children and families and have for many years as a teaching artist. And that's a pretty good guarantee if you ask someone if they have a scar to tell a story. Pretty much everybody has one of some kind. And so the scar I'm going to tell about is when I broke my wrist, and it is right here. There. So here goes. It was 1999, and I was down in San Diego at the National Storytelling Network's annual conference. And we had known for months that there was going to be a contra dance on Saturday night. And I had been contra dancing just for a few years, and I loved it so much. So I was really looking forward to that evening. We had also done something for that conference where in advance, a group of us got together and planned to make music on Sunday morning. We were going to have a sing. It was going to be like a 90-minute sing. And so I had prepared song sheets using Rise Up Singing and we were going to have a practice late on Saturday night. So it was just really exciting. When the contra dance began, the partner who asked me if I was dancing was a storyteller and a therapist who was also a flamenco dancer. And so we went through the contra dance. And for those of you who don't know, a contra dance has a similar vocabulary as square dancing, but the dance is done in a long line. And it's repeated many, many times. So by 16 times later, you kind of got it down, which is really lovely. You can have some success. And we'd come to the end of the dance and the band was playing music, and it was really the time where you could swing your partner or you could clap, stand and clap. And I looked at my partner and I said, "Do you want to go round really fast?" And he didn't answer yes or no. We just went in to the going round really fast. And we went around once and he let me go. And I broke my fall by putting my wrist on the ground, my hand on the ground, and I broke my wrist. Lots of loving care that evening. I went to the emergency room and a very thick, heavy plaster cast was given. And the next morning, I did not play my washboard with the band, but I did lead the singing. And a friend drove me home to Victorville because I was not allowed to drive. So 3 weeks later, I was not allowed to drive, but I had one event, one job at a senior citizen center in Covina. And because I wasn't driving, I figured out how to take the Greyhound bus. And I called the center and I said, "I won't be bringing my washboard, but I am bringing a tambourine. I'm a one-handed girl." So I asked my neighbor to give me a ride to the bus station, which is just 3 blocks away from my house in Victorville, in what is known as Old Town, Route 66 in Victorville. And when I arrived, she said goodbye and she dropped me off. And I, the one-handed girl with now a purple cast, one people could sign, had one bag to carry with my tambourine and a book of poetry and a to-go cup of coffee in a zippered pocket up front and a tall cup with cereal in it with a long spoon. And I went in and bought my ticket, and then I came outside and I noticed there was no place to sit. And I thought, that's kind of strange for a bus station. So I went in and there were individual bucket seats up against the wall, and it's a very small station. And I picked one up with my good hand and I brought it outside, sat down, and I was having my breakfast and my coffee in the chair when a man came out from the package express door of the Greyhound bus station, and he was shaking his finger at me and he said, you can't have that chair out here. You have to bring that back in. And I said, all right. I said, but how is it that you don't have any benches? I mean, this is a bus station. Don't people come and wait for people to arrive and wait for people to get on buses? And he said, we had a bench. I said, what happened to it? He said, it got busted up. He said, bring that chair back in. I said, oh, all right. And I took it up with my hand and I took it in. And then I was leaning against the wall of the bus station with my cup of coffee when he came back out of the package express and he was waving something. And he said, look. And I said, what is that? And he said, it's a photograph of the bench. It was a 4x6 photo. And if we'd been having an eclipse that day, I could have looked through the pinhole right at the sun and I would not have been hurt. I said to him, what happened to the bench? He said someone came with a sledgehammer and they busted it up and they broke all the pieces. I gave him back the photograph and my bus pulled in. I got on the bus and took an aisle seat because I like a little extra room. There was plenty of space. And I immediately got out my book of poetry, which I'd found over time that any time I left home, it was quite anxiety producing. Leaving home is difficult. And I was reading haiku by Steve Sanfield, and it always calmed me down. So I was sitting on the bus and I was reading his book of haiku called American Zen by a Guy Who Tried It. Here's 2 of his haiku. Emptying the piss pot, he notices the moon, pours it on himself. Remarkable. Failed my teacher, my lover, myself, all in a single day. I was on the bus with this book and I was thinking about the bench. And I thought, maybe I should write a haiku for it. And so with my left hand, because I am a right hand writer, I had been enjoying practicing writing with a left hand. I wrote and worked, and here was the haiku. It went like this. Busted bench. 7 years since, we still stand for it. The bus was traveling down the Cajon Pass, and all of a sudden the driver announced that we were going to stop in San Bernardino. We were going to have a little break, and I was shocked. Mind you, I've been driving all over Los Angeles anonymously in my car, with everything just the way I like it. Now public transportation. They said, we're going to San Bernardino. We'll be there for 15 minutes. You can have a break. When we got on the way down there, on that last little leg to San Bernardino, not my destination, I went to the restroom and noticed that on the stainless steel counter, there were all these white envelopes with silver on the inside. And the dispenser that held the moist towelettes was empty. And all these little white packages on the stainless steel triangle were moist towelette packages that had been emptied. And I thought, oh boy, we're out of moist towelettes. Now I had my bag with me, and I don't leave home without moist towelettes. And this is 99, way before the pandemic. So I got on the bus. I was still on the bus, and I thought, well, when we get to San Bernardino, maybe I can find some. So when we pulled in and lots of people got off to have a break and stretch their legs, I got off the bus and I saw a fellow in a Greyhound uniform. And I went up to him and I said, excuse me, I said, but do you have any moist towelettes? He said, what? I said, our bus. We don't have any, we're out of them. And he did this, he went, ah. He said, they only have those in LA. I said, oh, and I got back on the bus. But a few minutes later, he was back outside my window. And you know, buses are high. So he was down below and he was motioning me off the bus. And when I got off, he said, how many do you need? I said, 10. He said, 10? I said, yes, 1 for me and 9 for the bus. And he did this, and he turned and he went and he got on a new bus that had just pulled in. And he got off the bus and he came back and he had 2 fistfuls of moist towelettes. And he started to dole them out, counting them like playing cards. 1, 2, 3, all the way to 10. And then he had this fistful and I said, well, what are you going to do with those? And he said, these? He goes, these are for me. I said, you? I said, you work here. Let me have those. And he gave them all to me, put them in my hands. And I got on the bus and I did this. I showed everybody, whoever was there, look, nobody cared. Nobody's looking. Nobody's wondering. And as I went back to the back of the bus to put them in the dispenser, I noticed as I walked that there were seats with paperbacks and sodas and things, and there were moist towelettes unopened on many of the seats. And I thought, that's what's happening. People are going to the restroom and then they're taking several for later. As I walked back, I thought, Angela, if you're ever institutionalized, Angela, you're going to be just fine. I put everything in the dispenser and then I sat down and I was thinking about how all these years touring and teaching in Los Angeles and having everything the way I like it in my car, that now I was on public transportation and I had become a political activist. I sat in my seat and with my left hand was writing. I wrote a haiku for the moist towelettes. And it goes like this. Leftists, where do we come from? Broken rights.
Thank you, Angela. 2 quick questions. Well, wait, did you end with a haiku? Is that what just happened? I've never heard that before. Thank you. I'm going to change my mind. I have rather strong feelings about trigger warnings. I'm cool with people giving trigger warnings. I just think, it's a story. You're grown-ups. Assume it could be triggering. Leave if it's not okay. But I'm going to change my mind here, and this is it. I do think people should give trigger warnings whenever we use the word or hear the word moist. If the word moist is in your story, let us know in advance because I have to brace for that shit. It's just one of those words. So that was a good, interesting choice. Thank you very much, Angela. I know you were here last week and there was a misunderstanding and couldn't tell your story. So I'm glad you're here telling your story. And you're in California, right? Mm-hmm. Is that your meditation room?
It's my office.
Ooh, okay. Okay. It's got a meditation vibe.
It does have a vibe. And I found that cloth recently when I was emptying my closets.
Oh.
So I thought I'd let it unwrinkle and hang for a brief moment.
Hey. Okay. Thanks again.
Thank you. Thank you for listening, everyone.
Next up, live from Durham. Some people say Durham. Let's say Durham, North Carolina. Sharon Eisner's here. Sharon, what's up with your lighting? I can't see you.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
My lighting's kind of weird. I got a bulb that went.
Most important that we hear you, right?
Okay. Is that better?
Yeah, great.
Okay. So just to mention, this is not like a crafted story. This is something that just happened to me this week, and I just wanted to share. We change throughout our lives, right? But this week, I met someone who reminded me of where I've come from. And it was a little bit of a jolt. She walks dogs. Not that I ever walk dogs, but she works for someone that I do kindness for. It doesn't translate well from Hebrew. Hebrew is do chesed for, whatever. But anyway, I take a little old lady shopping on Saturdays. And this other person who's younger in her early 30s walks the little old lady's dogs. So when I got there to go shopping with the little old lady, this person was leaving. And she seemed sad. So I said to my friend, I said, is she okay? And the lady said, no, she's not okay. She's very depressed, very upset with her life. She just doesn't have energy to get out of bed and she's having a hard time functioning. And I said, the first thing that came to my mind, which I guess means more about me than about anybody else, but the first thing that came to my mind is she's seeing a therapist? And the woman said, no, she's not seeing a therapist. She doesn't want to be told that she needs medicine. She wants to handle this on her own. And I had such a flashback right then to me in college, desperately unhappy, dealing with so much on the home front, dealing with so much of my identity changing. And my brother said to me, Sharon, you seem really upset. You seem really depressed. Maybe you need to go to a therapist. And I said, I know myself better than a therapist knows me. That feels so horrible to say out loud at this age. But at that age, at 20, I thought, how can a therapist tell me what to do? But I finally did go to a therapist. My brother said, Sharon, you have to go to a therapist. You're not doing well. So I went to the college counselor, and she said to me, you are displaying all the signs of depression, and there's medicine for depression. You could be helped. And I remember feeling so judgmental in that moment. And I remember thinking, I don't want to be on medication for the rest of my life. I don't want to be dependent on medication. I came from a family that has a lot of issues. And one of their issues is you don't ask for mental health help. You just grit your teeth and move on. You can ask for help if you break your arm. You can ask for help if you need glasses. But when something bad happens, you just move along, right? So it had kind of seeped in through my skin that asking for help was somehow weak and problematic, and that getting the help of medications for the rest of my life made me a horrible human. Well, I struggled for a few more years. I graduated college. I was living half of my potential, maybe. I couldn't function well. You could imagine, if you imagine someone seriously depressed, clinically depressed, trying to function, you're imagining me. Finally, my brother said to me, look, come visit me in DC. Now, my brother had dealt with mental health issues, and he's 6 years older than me, and he saw what was going on. He said, come visit me in DC. I want you to visit my therapist. I want you to talk to her. I said, okay. So I remember her name was Jane. And she had made a difference in my brother's life. With our messed up family, our messed up heritage, she had made a difference. And so I went to visit Jane. And within 10 minutes of meeting Jane, she said to me, you need to be in therapy and you need to be medicated. You are clinically depressed. It's going to be extremely unlikely that you're going to be able to work through this without the help of medication. And I remember saying, well, don't I have that option? I mean, you're telling me what to do with my own body, and I was all self-righteous and all that. And she was trying to explore why I felt that way. Anyway, make a long story short, I left her office and I was so upset with her that she told me I was not okay and I couldn't be okay without chemicals. I lost track of time, but I was in my 30s before I tried medication. My whole life turned around. And that doesn't mean medications for everyone. It's not what I'm saying. But with my particular issues, my particular brand of depression, medication made it possible for me to function in a way that met my potential, in a way that I understood things better, that I understood myself better, that I could work through issues. I used to freeze. When someone yelled at me, I would freeze. I wouldn't be able to function because that would trigger something that happened to me when I was young. When I hit a problem that I couldn't understand, I would just go back to bed, literally. Okay, fast forward. Here I am in my 50s, living the good life, love my life, love what I do, still on medication. love everything about, not everything, but almost everything about my life, right? I feel very, very grateful. And then this young woman passes by for one moment, and I hear from the little old lady that I help, she doesn't think a therapist could help her, and she doesn't want to be on medication the rest of her life. And I had such a wave of remembering and such a wave of sadness for her and for my younger self who just hadn't been ready. And I guess if you look at it from a perspective of the universe knows best, maybe I wasn't ready for medicine then. Maybe I needed to experience what I needed to experience. But I wanted to run after the dog walker and just talk to her, have a conversation. It's impossible. It's unreasonable. She doesn't know me. She doesn't respect me. Why would she respect what I had to say? But the thought of somebody else losing all that time when they could be ready to work through things was so hard for me. And I just wanted to share how grateful I feel, not necessarily for the medication, but for the people in my life who didn't give up on me, like my brother, and kept suggesting it and kept saying, you can do better. You can live a fuller potential. Anyway, I just wanted to share. It was like seeing my past flash before my eyes. So thank you for listening.
Thanks, Sharon. I don't really know what to do with my hands. Is that right?
I don't know either. I just
Never
wiggle a
figured it
little
out.
bit.
I never figured it out.
It's unclear whether it's a wave or a wiggle.
I'd rather do just like a clap. You can still see the clap.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for sharing that story. So new. Just happened.
Yeah. Just
Right.
happened on Saturday.
Oh wow. Like yesterday?
Yeah. Just flashed. It's funny because I don't think about that. I don't think about it often, but when she was in front of me, it was so sudden. But anyway, thank you for listening, everyone.
Yeah. Thank you. Some people snap. You see about
You snap for poetry. You
yes.
snap for poetry.
Some storytellers here are poets or poetic, at least.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sean, do you want to know where this comes from? Do you know where this comes from?
Sacramento?
No, it is how the deaf show applause because they don't hear
Yeah.
it.
I understand, but also they do that in Sacramento. I'm just saying.
Why Sacramento?
It could be anywhere.
Oh. That was a
Thank you.
joke.
I
That was
mean,
a joke.
most people would say no, it wasn't, or it certainly wasn't an effective one. But thank you for that. And that makes sense that you're saying. And actually, I had growing up, there was a girl in my class who was fully deaf. And so I actually was, I don't know if the words
You were
introduced.
signing.
Not really, but we would see things like she had a sign language or interpreter. I'm not sure exactly in the classroom. So
Right.
everything. I guess my brain was somewhere else.
May I share one little thing about this business?
Sure.
Well, at the National Storytelling Festival many, many years ago, when there would be 10,000 people there on Sunday mornings, there were complaints made by the people attending church in the town when we would applaud in the tents for the storytelling on Sunday morning. And so a new practice was started on Sundays at the National Festival, which was the entire tent would rub their hands together.
I see.
And that's how we applauded. And if you've ever heard 1,500 people do this, it is a really lovely sound. So that's another, but that's an audio related expression. But this is visual so that people who don't hear can see the love.
Very nice. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you, Sharon. And now we have Linda. No, now we have Marie, and then we have Linda. Sorry. Unless you want to trade. You can trade right now if you want to, but I think it's fine. Marie. Marie, I keep saying Maria, my apologies. Marie, and I think Marie's in Minnesota. Have you moved, Marie? Because I didn't get a memo. Did you move? Are you muted?
Originally from Massachusetts, and I always mention that with Queen Mary.
Oh, yeah.
But I've lived here since 1992.
Oh, that was just the year before I was born. I like that.
You youngin'. I also have a very old story mixed with a very new one. So I was glad that mental health was coming up. I have worked as a stagehand for most of my adult life, and it hasn't always been easy. And I have been known as someone to speak up and to speak out in unacceptable work environments. And I learned early on, identify the behavior, observe the behavior. Is it the same towards everyone? Identify your rights. Identify the behavior you do not like. Identify your expectations. Identify what will happen next if the behavior does not change. So throughout my career, I've been speaking up as a lesbian woman. I've been speaking up as a woman. I've been speaking up for racism because, it's pardon my directness, but when a male colleague screams out, "Suck my dick," I have been known to say, "Are you being misogynist or are you being homophobic?" I expect that behavior to stop. I don't want to hear it as a woman. I don't want to hear it as a lesbian, and I don't want it to escalate. If it escalates, I'm going to management. So since 1992, since I've lived in Minnesota, I have been well known in the work environment to stand up and speak up for myself as well as others. My dog is going crazy. Finnegan, get your ball. 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, I showed up for work, and there were two of us. We were both senior women, stagehands, and it appeared I'm sorry. We both stated. Here you go. I said to the supervisor, there's only two of us. I think we're understaffed. My coworker said, should the union call steward be called and asked to send another person? Our supervisor said, we don't have anyone to bill that other person to. And he added, I don't know why notes weren't taken about this event last year and requesting more stagehands. Sorry, my dog is upstaging everything. Anyway, I called our business agent and he texted me back and he said, Marie, take photographs and file a grievance. Now, in my 30 years of being a stagehand, I have spoken up, but I have never written a grievance in my career. And I took photographs. I explained why we were shorthanded. I made reference to the contract that says in the spirit of cooperation, if we were shorthanded, the job will be completed and a grievance can be written and, various places. So, and I had an appointment. So a 4-hour day turned into 7.5, which was, hold on, I got to do something. Sorry. So a 4.5 hour day a 4 hour day turned into 7.5 plus lunch, and I was exhausted. And the following day, I show up at work, and this guy Jeff is a member of the union, but he's also a supervisor at this particular venue. And says, "Marie, what are you doing here?" I said, I came for tonight's loadout. And he says, "Well, you're rather early." And I said, "I wanted to fill out a grievance." He immediately became extremely defensive. He immediately became over the top angry. He immediately, "Finnegan, stop. Stop." He became very angry, very defensive, very confrontational, and very, very hostile. And he started to demand, "Did you get your 15-minute break?" "Yes." "Did you get your an hour lunch break?" "Yes." What is the exact points of the contract that you are grieving?" And I said, "Is there a form I can fill out?" He says, "No, there's no form. I'm the boss here. You're supposed to talk to me." And I'm suddenly feeling, for the first time in my life, very, very threatened, because I am alone and I am waiting and praying for a coworker to show up. And this guy is going over the top. And so last week I was meeting with my ILS worker. I have a disability, so it's an independent living skills person. And I was discussing that for the first time in my career, I had submitted a written documentation to the union about work conditions, even though I usually would just speak up. And John asked me if I was satisfied with the union's answer. And I said no. And he said, "What's your worst fear?" I said, "I don't want this shoved under the rug, because this is his regular behavior. And I don't want it to be minimized. I don't want it to continue. And I don't want to be the one who continues to stand up to him." And so John asked me, he said, "Well, in addition to the notifying the union, is there anything else you can do?" And I said, "I am dispatched by the union, sent to the venue, of which I am now an employee. So I have rights as a union member, and I have rights as an employee." And he said, "What would be the pros and cons of forwarding what you sent to the business agent to human resources?" And I said, "Within the contract, if you're going to make a complaint against someone, it needs to be made within 7 days for it to be valid," which I think is bullshit. And he said, "Well, he said, would the union business agent feel like you've side-skirted his authority?" And I said, "I have authority as an individual member of the union, and I have authority as an individual employee." And I said to my friend John, "I do not want to be his emotional punching bag." And last week I sent 2 letters, both to the union and to the employer. One with the photograph saying, "I think we were short-staffed and these are the reasons why, and here are the photographs." And I wrote, "This is I am stating a friendly concern, more so than a grievance. But under separate copy, you will be getting a very serious grievance." And then I wrote RE, grievance against Jeffrey, last name. And I spelled out his behavior. I spelled out that he continues to antagonize me whenever we are alone. I spelled out that whenever another coworker was present, he would play nice. And I said, "Please, send me a copy of the employee handbook. And I never expected it. I got emailed from a vice president saying, "Thank you for bringing this to our attention. This behavior will not be tolerated." Boom.
Drop the mic, Marie. Do you have a mic? You got to drop it. Thank you. And I kind of think the dog added a nice little extra layer or dimension to the story. Other people are nodding their heads. So. What's his name anyway, or her name? Marie, what's your dog's name? Can you hear me? Can anyone hear me?
His name is Finnegan. He's
Oh.
a border collie. He's very rambunctious, and he's named after my Irish grandmother from County Cavan.
Okay. Very Irish sounding right there. Yeah. I love it. Thank you for that. Thank you for sharing that. Appreciate it. Always good to see you. It's been a while since I saw you. Glad you're here. Who do we have us? We have Linda in her words, depressing state of West Virginia, the whole state. And then we're going to hear from Alexandra, who I believe is in what I still consider my city, which is New York. I don't know for sure, but she'll tell us when she's on. But right now it's not her, it's Linda. Linda. I'm going to stop talking, and then will you tell a story?
Yeah.
Oh, all right, whenever you want.
I've been in West Virginia for 4 years now. This is my roots. This is where my family is from. My roots are so deep here, like 250 years. And once I retired, became a widow, I decided to come back to my roots. A lot of reasons why. I have gotten fully involved in figuring out how my family fit in the history of West Virginia. I've been doing research, interviewing family members, and out of this has come a wonderful exploration and tons of stories, damn straight stories that I've been telling all over West Virginia, living history stories, antebellum stories. I'm even going to Charlotte in a couple weeks, and I'm going to do a living history antebellum story at the Blumenthal in Charlotte. I am so honored. I'm going to national parks, state forests and parks. Sometimes I'm even getting paid really, really good now. Okay, I'm going to boast for a minute. I'm getting paid $200 an hour to tell some of my stories. And it feels so good. Now, sometimes I do tell them for free, but I've got all these gigs lined up telling antebellum history stories based on my family's history. It's important. It is relevant. Yeah, the Civil War was 160 years ago. But my stories are still relevant today to help us understand where we were, how we got through battles against each other, brother against brother. We've moved forward, right? Maybe not so much. Yesterday, I was at a symposium at a local college. It was all about people that had done all sorts of history and written books about the Civil War. I was so excited. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to get lots and lots of information, things I've been yearning to know that I will incorporate into my stories, take in, kind of fashion them. I'm writing a book actually about a true antebellum story of slavery and betrayal and murders. It all feels so good to be able to finally speak truth about what really, really happened. A couple awesome speakers yesterday. It was an all-day symposium. I bought some books. I learned all sorts of data specifically to West Virginia. And I'm feeling, yes, maybe this will help relieve my West Virginia depression of not having any sunlight, not having anybody around me that I can talk to about this. I really don't fit in with a lot of people here, but that's okay. I find my tribe. I find you all online. I find other art groups, and I claim every once in a while I meet up with some of you on the road somewhere, and that's been a lot of fun. So the moderator asked everyone, okay, so when we finish our symposium, we want feedback. We need to know, what would you like to hear about next year? If you've got any ideas, come up and talk to me afterwards and share all those ideas. I was like, yeah, I got an idea. See, there's something that is going around West Virginia. It's called living history. It's where an actor takes on the character of somebody in history. And the West Virginia Department of Culture and History actually pays these actors to go out in the community to libraries and schools and community centers and anybody that wants to know about West Virginia history. Well, I've got a couple I'm working on. I've been and heard some of those people speak, and it makes history come alive for you. You really feel it. You feel the emotions. You feel the character. You can put yourself right there. So I went up and suggested maybe next year you could have an actor or two doing a living history presentation. It would really help people relate in a very tangible and emotional way, an unforgettable way. He goes, well, that's a great idea. He said, we wanted to have a fellow come here, and he was going to do the characterization of the first governor of the state of West Virginia from 1863. I said, marvelous, that's great. He goes, yeah, but he moved to Ohio because he thought it was a friendlier state, so he's not available anymore. I said, well, there is a woman that lives very close to here, a very, very talented woman. She's African-American, and she does living history as Harriet Tubman. It is remarkable. She's in the West Virginia Storytelling Guild, and so am I. I'll be happy to get in contact with her. Would you like to hear from her? This man, highly educated, somebody that you'd be so impressed to see him in his suit and his refined manners, looked at me, went like that. I said, I'll be glad to contact her. Oh, well, thank you. He turned around, actually showed me his ass while he pretended to load his stuff up in his canvas bag. Didn't utter another word to me, not one more word. And I was triggered. I totally wanted to take my foot and kick him straight in the ass. I thought, no, he's triggered me, but this is his audience. He delivered what they wanted to hear. I got some information, but I really don't fit in here. These people are not open to truth, to power, to unity, and to love. I was so pissed. I had a 30-minute drive home. So I put in a tape. And I'm like, what's going to help me feel love? Oh, okay. So I grew up in the 70s. Y'all ever heard of George McCrae? Rock Your Baby. That's what I played all the way home. Rock Your Baby. I'm like, I got to get out of this mindset of the gloom, the doom, the backward 160-year-old attitude. We have progressed. I have progressed. Someday, my hope, my prayer is that my brothers progress. Boom.
Thank you, Linda. All right. Not feeling so depressed anymore, maybe. Okay. 200 clams? What the fuck? 200 clams, baby. That's what I'm talking about. Yes. Thank you for sharing, telling. Some people don't like the word sharing. It's fine. Sharing. It's not sharing. It's people have things in the chat that they're asking or commenting on. So check it out when you can. Oh, by the way, before I introduce our final storyteller, what I believe is our final storyteller this evening, I think everyone here knows that I have a podcast. If you have any interest in hearing suicide attempt survivors talk, then I have a really good podcast for you. I'm the host. I do not suck at it. And they're kind of fascinating humans who tell and share fascinating things. So I wanted to just share that. And for now, that's the only plug.
Will you put it in the chat for us? Put the details or the name of it so we
I'll
can
just put the name and then you put it into wherever you listen to the podcast. It'll come right up. Yeah, sure, of course. Thanks for asking. Alexandra Nyman. Give me a little latitude here with the names. I'm doing my best. She's in New York City. I do have some envy because she's in New York City, but I'm going to let that go for the moment. Alexandra, I'm going to mute myself, shockingly true, in a moment. And then you're going to say what you want to say and tell a story or whatever it is. Is that cool?
Yeah, cool.
All right. I'm stopping talking now.
Okay. So I'm originally from the Pocono Mountains of Pennsylvania. And the only thing I wanted more than anything in my bones was to go to New York City. So I became a professional couch surfer for the first 2 to 3 years that I was living in the city. And if no couches were available, I would sleep on the subway and ride it all the way to the end of the line for a few times, or until I was told I needed to get off the train so that I could clean it and I had to get off. And if I was too wiped out to endure the glamorous life of subway sleeping, I would ride a bus to nap, or I would sleep in Port Authority. There was a spot downstairs where the MART's buses would come in that didn't have much foot traffic in the evenings. So I would go as far away as I could from the bus gates to Stroudsburg as possible. And I would charge my phone the outlet and I would sleep against the bus gate. And honestly, I just would do anything to avoid riding 2 to 3 hours back to home, back to admitting to my family that I was not making it, that I was not successful. And when I eventually would run out of clean clothes, I would go home, wash the dirty ones, fill a new bag with new clothes to maintain the illusion to my friends that I was making it in the film industry. But in reality, I was broke, lonely, and if I was really honest with myself, I would admit that I was completely and utterly depressed and I had completely lost myself. I didn't know who I was anymore. And when I did get a good paying gig, I would only get maybe an hour of sleep before we needed to return back to work. But that was the nature of working on a touring show like American Idol or So You Can Think You Can Dance. My friend Taylor, he had always been supported, and he and his roommates also worked in the film industry. So I stayed on their couch probably 2 to 3 days of the week. And when he needed my help on a short film shoot, I told him it was the least I could do. We were all following our dreams together, and none of us were going to sell out and work for a network. We wanted our art to be to get the recognition it deserved. So when we did the shoot for the short film, everything went fine. Most of the same crew then came and worked on a music video I was directing for my friend Mia, which also went really well. It was just about what happened during post-production, that was a nightmare. It all started when I had completed a music video edit. And when I sent it over to Mia, it looked like shit. I hadn't realized that I had edited the entire music video in the wrong dimensions, which then produced a potato vision piece. Mia was freaking out because she wanted to premiere the music video that night for all of her 25 fans. So I asked Taylor if he could help out, and he demanded that I pay him $250, which was what I had made for that entire shoot. So figuring, it's my mistake, I paid it. I agreed. I had no other choice. I was working another gig. I didn't have the time, and I didn't want to lose my client, nor did I want to lose my friendship. I also didn't want to lose my current job for this, because even though my boss at the rental house was sexist and everyone knew that he paid all the women less than the men, a gig was a gig. And my philosophy as a director at the time was to learn every position so I could be a better leader. So if that meant working at a grip house, it meant working at a grip house. So Taylor saved the day. And even though the premiere was a couple of hours late, still worked out. We were able to make it happen. And then a couple of hours after the upload, I got a call from Taylor. I thanked him profusely, but something was off. He asked me if I had paid Bart, who everyone in our friend circle knew I had a huge crush on, even though he didn't even know who I was. And he had asked me if I had told Bart that I was going to pay him for the short film that we had just shot. And I told him no, he was only supposed to be paid for the music video. Taylor got really quiet, and then he stated that I think we have to continue our conversation about our professional relationship from this point on before we hop into a new project that requires so much. Being the people pleaser I am, I immediately replied, I completely agree. I've been thinking a lot and would like to hear the options of me either associate producing, or production managing. I want to be in a position where I can grow, and that will be a good place for us to be able to continue to work together. Taylor completely went off on me. He said, due to my lack of communication and what I used to see as my strength, my dyslexia, I had led Bart to now demand that he be paid for this short film shoot, and that he could no longer trust me to work with me anymore, and that I shouldn't have been spending all my time flirting with the gaffer, and that because of our personal relationship, Bart was confused about if he was to be paid for this shoot or not. I told Taylor not to worry about it. I would pay Bart out of my own pocket. It was my mistake, and I was opening up to it, and that this was just all a horrible miscommunication. Taylor had none of it. He cut me out of our entire friend group, which left me with no more couches to surf on. Taylor then went on to sell out, and he started working for the Big Mouse. And although he kept saying we needed to meet in person to discuss this whole mess, we never did. And then I got laid off from my job at the Grip House, and I never saw Bart again. His promises of if I make it, we all make it, never came to fruition. Each person then went on to do their own thing, and everyone drifted apart. I begged my friend to meet, to see what had happened and how to change, to help me change. But 13 years later, that call never came. And the empty promises of meeting for lunch or reconnecting are just that, empty promises. One of the last messages I ever sent him was, let me know when you're free this week so we can discuss the communication issues and such. Perhaps we could use Google Plus or chat on the phone. Past today, I'm free the rest of the week. After that, I reached out maybe 1 or 2 more times to congratulate him on his projects, but I never heard from him again. A few days ago, I wrote up a message to Taylor to send condolences to him for the passing of his father. When Taylor and I were close friends, he had shared with me how he had lost contact with his father due to his alcohol use disorder. I had urged him to try to get in touch with his father again, since I knew the pain of losing a father and the even more unbearable pain of regret. He never did, and now after 17 years of no contact, he will have to seek peace and comfort. I hope he knows that despite his illness, his father never stopped loving him, and that to this day, if he needs anything, I'm still here for him. But he will never know this since I unsent the message, figuring it was best to leave the past in the past, no matter how difficult it is for me to do so. I liked being needed and being friends with people. And to lose that friendship is one of life's worst pains for me. After this, I decided to step away from the glitz and glamour of sleeping in Port Authority in between shoots, couch souping with friends, and enduring a brutal 6-hour commute. I longed for the calm and stillness of country life and went home for 3 months. The Taylor fallout was only a small portion of why I returned home. The main reason was to help my brother during a very difficult time of his life, and I don't regret being able to be there for him. This time was the best thing for me. During that time away from the industry, I decided to reassess my life and what I wanted to do with it. It also gave me the opportunity to become closer to my brother and how to care for someone other than myself. During this time, I learned to cook, tend house, and become an expert on curling up into a ball and sleeping on the floor next to my brother's bed. I was afraid, he was depressed, and I didn't know what that meant. But what I did know is that I desperately could not lose him. I couldn't imagine a world without him, even though our whole world wanted nothing more than for him to disappear because of how he was born. Returning home wasn't the end of my film career. I went on to direct, produce, and become a semi-in-demand costume designer, but in many ways it felt like it was. And in a sense, it was the end of my career as a starry-eyed PA, gazing into the nebula that is the film industry. In the beginning of me picking and choosing my gigs, being more cautious in the productions I chose to be a part of, and was the end of my career as a PA. Being a PA taught me many things, mainly that I want to be needed. The way I satisfied my desire to do good in the world was always through helping others. And being a PA met that need. I liked being relied on. I liked wanting to be needed by someone and being praised for it. And thus, this led to my misadventures as a social media manager, consultant, digital analyst, graphic designer, jill of all trades, anything for the gig economy type gal. This is an excerpt from a book that I'm working on, all about every single failure I have ever had in my life and what I learned from it.
That's awesome. Thank you, Alexandra. Wow. Thanks, Richard. Bye. Thanks, Alexandra in New York City. What's the title of the book? Does it have a title yet? Or was that it?
It's called Cog in the Machine. It's a play on words from the most horrific PR agency I ever worked for, that I'm ashamed to say I was there for 6 years, because every single time I tried to quit, I got a raise.
Yeah.
And the money was just too good, but I sold my soul for a little too long.
Was that the subtitle right there?
Should be.
Not a bad subtitle right there, Alexandra. Are you in
No.
Brooklyn? Right, where are you? Can you tell us your borough?
I am unfortunately in Staten Island, the
Mhm.
Forgotten Borough. It's a
All
very
right.
weird place.
Yeah, well, it's a little cheaper. A little cheaper. That's cool.
Oh yeah, I have a whole house, so I enjoy that.
There you go.
My cat likes it.
Yeah. Sometimes after these open mics, people tend to ask questions particularly to the storytellers about their stories. So that's an option, but I didn't say it beforehand. I probably should have. But I do want to say, I know some people have to run off and do things. Does anybody want to share something they're involved with, whether it's like producing, telling, teaching, organizing, that we might want to know about, support, at least learn of? And that's anybody, whether you told the story or not tonight, small group. You can, Alex, do you want to hop on and talk to us a tiny bit about it? I mean, more than a tiny bit, but Break Free Foundation, yeah, which I know a little bit about.
So we got our nonprofit status in December of 2022. The Break Free Foundation provides scholarships for individuals suffering with substance use disorder to attend an inpatient and outpatient program at low to no cost to them. We have partners in New Jersey and New York, and we're working on getting more partners to help us out with the scholarship end of things. And we're also launching online support groups, life skills classes with Sharon, and hopefully we can do something together too, Sean.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to talking to you about that.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. That's pretty noble work right there. So
Thank you. Thank you.
who else? Oh, I see Angela Lloyd from Victorville, California's hand up. Yes, Angela Lloyd.
Hi, I wanted to mention that Adam Booth is the producer of the Speak Story series, and he's based in West Virginia, and he'll be hosting Carmen Didi this week on Tuesday, and she's a wonderful storyteller and teacher, author, writer, and I just thought I'd highlight that for people if whether they've heard her or not. She's
Linda's almost
magnificent,
orgasmic.
and Adam had a very successful performance in Keynote last weekend at Sharing the Fire.
Cool.
Just a magnificent performance and keynote for the conference, which
Very nice.
happened live in New Hampshire, but he's a treasure. So it's nice to meet Linda, someone else from the West Virginia Guild. So fantastic.
Linda made an interesting face when you were saying some of that. She looked very excited.
Adam Booth is remarkable, and he is on the West Virginia Storytelling Guild. And I haven't met him in person, but I have done some of his remote virtual events, and yeah, you just get a tingle when you listen to him. He's super.
You'll be meeting him soon enough, I'm sure.
I hope.
He'll be opening for you one day, Linda.
Yes.
Maybe. I don't know. Sharon, yes.
Okay, so I'm about to get myself in trouble, but I just want to say it was, I don't know if everybody listened to The Moth last week. I listened again tonight. But one of us was on The Moth nationally, and it was Sean, and he's going to hate me for saying this, but if anybody wants to go back to the archives, it was quite a meaningful and beautiful story. Just don't listen, Sean.
I'm okay.
So,
I'm okay.
Okay. So anyway, so we always love when somebody from our group hits on national radio. I mean, why not? So
Yeah.
I just wanted to let you know that was there.
I listened last night. Was he from LA?
Oh, no, it wasn't this weekend. Podcast? It was last weekend.
Okay, I'll look it up.
Last weekend.
You.
Yeah.
Just to correct, I think it's international, not national. Just
my bad.
Make sure you get your facts straight. I know, by the way, one of our own, and when I mean own, like there's a particular group of people that have been meeting for a very long time together, but I don't want to sound weird and like exclusive or inclusive, but shout out to Corey Thomas May, not because the Lady Hawkeyes couldn't pull out the victory today, but because he, and we don't all like super love the Moth, it's just the Moth, but Corey won a Grand Slam in Minneapolis a couple weeks ago, so shout out to you. Because we haven't
Grand Slam.
Not a slam, to be clear.
The winners.
Not a slam. A grand slam. Grand salami for our friend in Iowa. So well done. Nancy's yelling, but we can't hear her because that's the nature of audio when you're muted.
Thank you, Sean. That was kind of you. I appreciate that a lot.
And he's got the milky voice. What's not to love? Yeah, I'm going to just pour it on. It gets slightly awkward, I know, but I've known you long enough where we can do this, even in public. Does it make for good TV? No. Anyone else have a thought, share, comment about stuff that's going on that they, no embarrassing people moving forward, just normal, regular, standard stuff?
It's a little late for that, Sean.
It's a little late for that. I assume, Alexandra, that we can find Break Free Foundation if you Google it. Like people, I mean, I'm sure they'll find it, right? Break Free.
Yeah, we have a website. We're on all the social medias.
All the medias. Cool. Yeah. Yes.
Sean, are you going to be at the Moth in Asheville in a couple weeks?
Thursday. Oh, no, wait. Not, I think Sharon's going to go to the moth, what people in my circle call a regular moth. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, yes, yeah.
I mean, now that I am where I am, I don't really know. And I'm just kidding. I might go.
Wait. So this Thursday, there's a Grand Slam, and Sean is competing in that in Asheville, North Carolina.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah,
Linda-
Sean's big time now.
Oh no, don't worry. Linda
Sean's
was
big
there.
time.
Linda was there at the moth when I was very much not big time. Don't worry.
Big
Is
time.
it this
Live.
week? Is it this week or in a week? In 2 weeks?
No, it's
This week. This week, the
April
6th.
6th.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm
okay.
so excited, but like just
Sean's a little chesty right now, just a little chesty. It's all up in here.
So is there a theme or is it open to whatever you
I
want?
think I got no. There's a theme. I'm very lucky because the theme is Sean.
Yeah.
No,
he
it's
already
not-
listed
Oh
on
my
that.
God, how lucky did I
No.
get? I know. I'm like, yeah, I totally scored. I can't screw this.
Liar, your pants on fire. It is not.
It's comfort zone.
Oh,
That's the official theme, comfort zone. I don't know much. I know that I wanted to say this, probably some of you don't care about this. Well, but Corey and others, sorry, but I was really like ready to get annoyed with the quote unquote moth coach, just because I get annoyed easily, but I have to give her credit. This woman whose name is Kate, she's out of New York. Very nice.
Oh, you didn't get Larry Rosen?
I did not get Larry Rosen. I got Kate in her office in New York, and very helpful, very nice, good listener, good support. So got to give credit where credit's due.
could Corey and Sean tell us the process to make it to this magnanimous level? How did this happen?
Oh, you want like high achieving storyteller, personal narrative storyteller tips?
Yeah.
Type?
Well, no. At the Moth specifically, and I know
No.
Corey, you did the Grand Slam and you won. So
Yeah.
how many levels did you have to get through and be the winner to make it to that?
Well, first you have to get your name drawn at a moth, and then you have to tell the story, and then you have to win. And then after that, you wait a while, and then you
Get invited.
You get invited to a Grand Slam of that particular area or that host city, and you have to have 10, or in our case 9. And part of the reason why I won is Sean wasn't there because he chose not to participate.
You would have won, please. With Superman's story, I had no chance. Give me a break.
I might have I'm like first runner up, but I got the crown because I was there.
Give me a break.
Yeah, that's
Give me a break.
pretty
All
much-
right, your false modesty or whatever it's called is not going to fly here. Okay.
Oh, but it's
So
the
Corey,
truth.
it was in Chicago for you, or
Minneapolis, St. Paul.
okay. And Sean, for you, it's
Asheville.
Okay.
Now, just to clear up some possible confusion, because of the virtual events that happened for like 2 years, Corey and I happened to compete at separate Minneapolis events virtually.
Yes.
So when they went back to live or in person, they invited people from wherever they were. So I couldn't go because I was here and it just had a conflict. And Corey,
Sean just wanted to make sure that he was spreading the wealth around, letting other people win, because Lord knows it would have been like,
oh, enough. Listen,
Hey, you both got the smooth head thing going on, so
that doesn't hurt. I tell you, you gotta take whatever you can get to win these damn things. And I don't, yeah, no, but Corey would know more than me because I don't know. I guess I'll know a little bit more come Thursday. I just don't know.
it's just you got to win. You got to be selected and in the name drawing, because more often than not, there's more tellers than slots. You got to be gotta have your name drawn, then you got to have a winning story, and then you got to wait until 9 other folks compete and win, and then
I mean, yeah.
You know who just won from our group? The well, not the Moth, but there's a local one in North Carolina called the Monty, and our friend Kat, who usually comes to this, just won that. So she's going to be in the Grand Slam of the Monty, which is the tiny little southern moth.
Right.
I have
That's
a
cool.
question. When you go to the Grand Slams, Does the Moth host you? Do they cover travel, housing, or any of that?
Nothing.
That's so
They
interesting.
go, as far as I know, that when the Moth invites you to a main stage, they cover, I think they cover expenses, and I think there's not a stipend of some kind as well. But this, no. And in fact, I don't know their operating costs. It's, why would I? But there's 800 seats in this theater, and the tickets are like $35, I think.
Mhm.
And winners don't get anything. No one gets anything. So
Right.
you could question that if you choose to. But
Well, I don't know if you know, but George Dawes Green, who was the founder of the Moth, he presented a keynote at the NSN conference in San
Oh, cool.
Jose in
Nice.
2019, and
Uh-huh.
he taught a 3-hour intensive.
Nice.
I was his stage manager.
How was
for-
the workshop or the intensive?
He talked about personal stories. He just talked about, he
How was
gave
it?
us storytelling prompts, and people told individually and in duos or trios, and then some folks shared with whole group.
That's great.
But it was great, and people
Nice.
were very receptive, and it was really nice to have him in the
Yeah.
NSN house.
Yeah, of course.
Great.
Yeah, yeah. He's the guy, right?
Mhm.
Are
Where
those,
I don't know how
Where
much
is
he
the-
does with it now, actually, but he was
Yeah.
the founder.
yeah, yeah.
Where in Asheville? Is it at the Eagle again?
No. It's in a much larger venue.
Mm.
It's at I can find it if you want me to tell you. Hang on. Asheville. It's at the, I don't know how much you know about this. Come on. Oh, it's at Diana Wortham. Wortham something. Wortham. Wortham. So it looks like a really beautiful space. Not so small.
Yeah, there was a storytelling festival in Asheville for 10 years, from
Oh, wow.
91 to 2001.
Wow.
I was a part of that.
I'm not surprised. Yeah, that's a good place for that type of thing. They've got a good, Ray Christian hosts it almost always. I don't know if you probably know Ray.
I
Do you-
don't know the name.
Oh, you don't know Ray? Okay. I thought he was kind of big in the NSN world too, but guess not.
They're having the regular Moth on
24th?
April the 24th.
Clean is the theme, I believe.
Yeah, and I'm actually, every year I go visit my son there and family, so I'm going to be there that week.
Oh,
Yeah, but
put your name in.
I
Because
will.
you went once and you didn't get called. I know, I was there.
But you know what? If you don't show up, maybe
I won't
they'll
go, don't
call
worry.
me.
Well, I think Sharon's going and Pat might go. So, hey, I don't have control over that.
Oh, Sharon and Cam are going?
Maybe.
All right.
So you haven't met her? You haven't met them?
I met Sharon. Yeah, we
right.
rendezvoused in Charleston.
Yeah, okay.
Um,
I can't speak for sure, but I think they were thinking about going. I may go. I don't know. It's kind of far for me to and then not get called. And to be honest, you know how it is. Like some stories are good, but some kind of aren't. I'm like, and then I probably don't make it back that night, so I have to pay $100 to stay somewhere. So it's tricky.
Will you drive this week to Asheville?
I'll drive. I'm gonna go to Charlotte first. I have a friend there, and he has an open mic. That's the day before, so I'll go there. I've been meaning to do that, and then I'll I'll stay somewhere, and the next day I'll have plenty of time and no rush to go to Asheville. And then
So what's the open mic in Charlotte?
Zach, right? He's been on
Yeah,
Fridays.
yeah,
His thing is called Once Upon a Trauma.
Yeah, you're going to do that?
Happens to be the night before, so I said, sure, that'd be cool.
Is he doing that like twice a month now?
I don't know. Once, maybe.
Because I'm going to be in Charlotte the week before visiting my other son and my best friend. I'm going to be staying there for a while, and some friends at that's when I'm going to be at the Blumenthal in Charlotte.
Are you gonna? Or is it? But I don't know when it is though. Yeah, I know the next one is this week. I don't know about after though.
I'll have to check with him. The Blumenthal is an open mic too, but you had to send in an audition tape to get in. So I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to Asheville. So who knows? We may pass each other on the interstate.
When you're not going to the bank,
Yeah, right. Yeah,
when
I'm
you're not depositing all your checks, the local credit union.
not every gig pays, but so hey.
It's nice to be acknowledged in that way, though, isn't it?
I've got a fun one coming up though. It's there's so much Civil War events around here, and there's one called the Blue and Gray Reunion, which is in Philippi, where the first land battle of the Civil War happened, and that's in June. And there's a big Boy Scout jamboree, and they've hired me to come out and tell antebellum ghost stories. So I'm gonna, the Boy Scouts are gonna be around their campfires Saturday night, 11 o'clock. They don't know I'm gonna show up.
Really?
And and I'm gonna show up, and I've got some good ghost stories to tell. Scare them good.
Yeah.
And I am getting paid for that one too. So
Very
Good
cool.
night. It's
Good
really
night,
great
Angela.
to see you all and have
nice
time
to
with
meet
you.
you, Angela.
Thanks
Thank
again.
you. Have safe travels, Sean.
Thank you very much.
Shanala. Safe travels, Shanala.
Thank you, Angela. Cool. All right.
So
That's it. Anything else?
it's a wrap.
I guess it's a wrap.
Yeah.
Thank you.
This
Good to
was
see
real
y'all.
cool.
Thanks, Alexandra. It's good to connect with you.
Yeah, definitely.
I like the image that I'm seeing on my screen here of you, or not you, but
Thank you. That is our logo.
semicolon and then a sort of butterfly-ish, or am I
Yes.
seeing it correctly? Mhm.
Abstract butterfly wings.
But that is a semicolon.
Yes, it is.
That's an intentional semicolon. Yes, I like it.
You're very intentional.
I'm very sharp.
Make
You
sure,
could
Make
take
sure
the kid out of
they-
New York, but you can't take the New York out of the kid.
bye y'all.
See
All right,
ya.
y'all. Alexander, you want to hook up and connect and talk, or at some point?
Yeah, I would love that.
All right.
When are you
Alright.
free?
I'm pretty flexible. I mean, we could chat for a few minutes right now or during the week.
Yeah, I could talk now.
All right. Can I see you or? No?
Yeah, let me go to my
I don't need
desk.
to. No, I don't need to if you're like doing the thing on the floor that you talked about.
No, I'm not doing that. Haven't done that in a long time.
Let me just grab something real quick and then we can chat.
Yeah, sounds good.
Sharon was doing some work with you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So Sharon had been doing or is doing some work with you. I know, right? Had been the last year or so. Is that right?
So she had done work with Aaron Ronta, who's the vice president of our board, through Reva Recovery. And Reva
okay.
is
Okay.
now on hiatus. And Aaron thought it would be great to connect Sharon with me, since we're going to be launching our support groups in April.
Very cool. Got it. All right. All right, cool. So what is, Sharon told me a little bit, but what is well, yeah, I'm just curious to hear a little more.
Yeah, so we're mainly looking for more programming and more sober events. Something like this would be great to promote to our community. We have close to 6,000 followers in our Facebook group.
Nice.
A lot of them are mostly in more early recovery. I feel like the people who are in later recovery, they're not as vocal. They more so serve as a support for the people who are like, I'm on day one, or I'm on week one, or I'm on month one. We provide support for people for mental health, co-occurring disorders, and for addiction, which can be anything. It could be a shopping addiction, it could be sex and love, it could be gambling, or it could be substances or alcohol.
Wow.
we're also hoping to offer scholarships for people to attend therapy and to see a psychiatrist.
Wow. Seems like that would be, yeah, I don't need to know. I'm just curious how, well, I don't need to know, but
You can ask.
I would lose my mind trying to manage all that is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's my point. That's my point. I'm good at I'm really good at I've got one thing, I'm doing it really well, great. Ooh. And you're
Well,
dealing
with
with like a
ADHD,
lot of,
that's the magic juice for me.
you like doing that.
I'm the only one who can do it,
Yeah.
honestly. I really enjoy the partners that we have. I enjoy making those partnerships.
Yeah.
I don't enjoy having to tell people that they haven't been selected. I would say that's
We haven't
difficult.
been selective for what?
Oh, for the scholarship, because
so
like,
somebody
we don't
that
have a
needs help?
spot this month, or yeah,
Yeah.
or they just don't meet the financial criteria.
Yeah. 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 So when you have, well, let me, I should have just let you lead this. So like, what questions do you have for me or anybody that you might be considering in a particular role in like this for programming?
It's really just like availability, what you would like to bring to the organization, if you'd be able to help promote it to your following. I would also love to talk on your podcast too. My younger brother had a series of 5 suicide attempts after he came out as being gay in my hometown. And our priest told him he was going to burn in hell.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good priest.
That's how I got into all of this.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I was
Because
thinking about why you got into it, right? Yeah.
my mom, she has a lot of mental health issues. She doesn't choose to get help.
Mhm.
I opened up about that through, I'm also a fashion designer. We do a New York Fashion Week showcase. And so this collection was called Marry Me Betty, named after my grandmother, who had what used to be categorized as mania, but it's bipolar disorder type 1. And I recreated my mother's earliest memory, which was my grandmother being taken out of the house in a straitjacket by 2 men in white coats for electric shock therapy. And it's because of that generational trauma that my mom has never sought help. And she also had a bit of a breakdown when my younger brother had his attempts, because she thought he was going to be taken away from her in that same manner. She didn't comprehend that the mental health field had evolved so much. So I basically had to figure everything out and get him help. And she just didn't have the capability to.
How is he now?
He's good. He's about 6 years from his last attempt. He's studying for his graduate's degree. He wants to be an English professor, specifically for British literature.
Wow.
And he writes about his experiences with mental health and being gay in a very conservative town.
Where is he?
He's in Westchester, PA now.
Westchester, P. That's
So
conservative.
it's like 20 minutes out from Philly.
Conservative.
No, where we grew up.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, there's a lot of kids who try in that situation.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
And then I went through that same nightmare with my niece when she came out as being a lesbian. Her mother completely rejected her.
Yeah.
She's okay now.
She's okay.
It was much easier to get her connected to resources here in the city than it was back at home, where there was one therapist that accepted my brother, and they did not mesh well.
Well, you can't really talk about suicide. The whole point, the reason I created the podcast is there's nowhere to talk about it. Literally, because everywhere you have to talk about it, that comes with a very big but. If you actually talk about it, we're going to send cops to your house. That's not talking about it.
Yeah.
That's in my experience. I'm sure there are, actually, I kind of do know what I'm talking about. There's a few organizations where you can actually talk about it and not have cops come, or sometimes others that might not be so aggressive, but they don't get funding, so you don't know about them as well. The people who get the
Yeah.
funding
It's a really
agree to a
huge
certain thing.
issue.
Not, I have rather strong feelings about it, but I get it. I don't mean to, it's complicated, right? And I don't think
No,
there's
it's tough.
complicated.
I mean,
Yeah.
you would think Daniel's law would be no nonsense, that it would just pass. And it's been in legislative limbo for 3 years.
Yeah.
And I've had like legislators yell at me being like, why would you want to do this? Why would you want this passed? These mental health people are going to be killed. And it's like, do you really think somebody who's suicidal standing on the top of a building that wants to jump is thinking about like, oh, let me like have a bomb strapped to my chest and blow it up and kill everybody with me? No, like they're fucking depressed.
Yeah.
They're not a threat. And these people are trained in de-escalation. And yet they don't get it. They think that mental health and suicide is a public safety issue.
Right. And they could find an example of one time one person off their meds running through the streets and killed someone or knifed someone. They look at how about the 900,000 other examples that it doesn't happen, but you don't hear about that.
Yeah, no.
So it's such a bizarre, so my thing really is, I have two things that are kind of overlapping, but one thing is the Suicide Noted podcast. That's kind of straightforward. Like they talk with suicide attempt survivors. The other thing is all the personal narrative story stuff. And the thing that I'm trying to do much more of is help people with their stories. Like I've done a bunch of workshops and we have like, I guess they're like masterminds, but that's a snobby word. Like we just get together and have a name for it. It doesn't matter. And then we have these different kinds of events, like tonight's an open mic. We have other things, not as many as we used to because the virtual thing's tricky, but I really enjoy helping people tell, and I've not found the best word for this, but hard stories, right? Mm-hmm. Stuff that they've gone through that is not easy, not difficult, not challenging. So I'm less interested in spending time with people who only want to talk about, you can imagine, right? Like, oh, I went to the baseball game and it was fun, which is cool. Actually, that's fine. But that was actually a bad example because it could very much be relevant. But I think you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I gotta get my elevator pitch way better. I suck at that. But yeah, I enjoy creating that space and the majority of your members or participants men
and women.
Yeah,
it's a good equal mixture. We have an area on the site where people could share their recovery story with us, and then we could feature it for them. Mm-hmm. We've also done open mic nights, which have been interesting.
Story-ish or like a mix?
It's a huge mix. Like people they'll do poetry, they'll sing, they'll read, they'll do their art, different things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, my thing is story, right? Like that's my I think I'm good at, and I can help with. So I'm happy to continue talking about that. And the only other thing I would say is that I don't know. I guess this is a preference. It's hard for me to work with people who are forced to do something.
Yeah.
And it's hard for me with addiction in particular, one of the things that's challenging is I think a lot of times people are, like I've loosely worked with like people from 12-step. And they're kind of, not in a pejorative way, not in a negative way, like stuck on the story. and I don't mean that in a way
Well,
like,
because
oh,
that's
you
such
can't
a
break
huge
free.
part of 12 step, and it's a very
Right.
particular way that you say it. That's why we're specifically doing smart recovery. We're
Yeah, yeah.
not doing AA recovery meetings. We want people to have the freedom to really express themselves instead of having to, you are an addict, you're never not an addict, you
Right.
always have to come to these meetings. I just think that that's a bit degrading.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know that much about either. Mhm. And I think one of the things I've learned is one of the basic tenets of personal narrative story is because we talk about people having like, what's your story or here's my story. And I don't think you don't have a story. Like the very nature of story is that story is predicated on a change. So you could go through a thing and have 10 stories about it related to it, right? Like, for example, I stayed at the UNC Psych Center and I have a story about how much it fucking sucked. I thought it was, I would hope, and then I lost hope after I got out. But there's another story about a nurse. When everyone was being mean, he was being kind. And I had a sort of different realization. And I think it's fun for me to explore that with people. Like, you probably have this default story about something, whether it's in like pure form, story form or not, that doesn't so much matter. And it's interesting to explore. There might be some other narratives there,
Yeah.
you know, and like, you got to have a space to talk about it. And then in as much as someone's interested, there's also a craft. And it matters in my experience because when you craft something well, I know you probably know this, given what I just heard you share, like when you craft it well, people are more likely to pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
When you craft it well, people are more likely not to get lost in a lot of detail, among other things, so that when you if it matters to you, and it, you know, some do it, some don't. Well, depending, like people, they can pay attention, they can hear it, they can understand it, they can connect in a way that if you're just blah 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 blah, we're lost. It's hard to follow. I know your courage is up here, A+, but and that's hard for some people to accept. Like, that's my fucking story, and you're not gonna. I don't change anything. Just want to help you craft it and mold it a little bit, so that when you share it, you know, people might be able to resonate it with it in a way that you might want. That make I'm babbling, but does that make sense?
No, it definitely makes a lot of sense.
Good. Yeah. So, well, you've got a lot of work to do.
Definitely.
Yeah. Are you gonna? So, and Sharon's doing some stuff with you as well with her coaching.
Yeah, she's gonna do some life skills workshops for the folks who are more so in early recovery. I would love to explore inviting them to attend this, the members. I feel like they could get a lot out of this. I
This
did like
kind of
last
event.
second. Yeah.
Sure.
Even if they're just listening.
Yeah, of course. Of course. I used to do this more often, but because of the nature of things, so it's like every 6 weeks now. I wish it could be more, but I'm kind of gauging things.
Yeah.
For sure, whatever their comfort level is. And look, some people come and they have no real background in the story stuff, so they're just sort of talking. It's all right. I just ask that it doesn't go on for like 20 minutes, 30 minutes if we have a lot of people, but
Yeah, definitely.
yeah, and that sometimes is the sort of birthplace for something if they do want to get a little more into the craft. But sometimes people just want to talk and have others hear it, and that's an end, and that's great. You know?
Yeah, and sometimes that's healing for them.
Yeah, definitely, 100%. So I'll share with you that. Well, I mean, obviously I have your information, and we can keep talking, but yeah, of course they're welcome to join. Really cool.
Yeah.
What is your story from tonight for? Is that just an excerpt from the book?
Yeah. So that was maybe like 11 years ago when I lost someone who had really been like a brother to me. He was my older brother's best friend before he was my best friend. So I like grew up knowing him. And then he caused like this whole BS argument. He completely blew up his relationship with his fiance. And then he moved to Florida, started working for Disney. And then he sent me like weird messages saying, I should have picked you. It was always you. And I'm like, oh man. You're clearly intoxicated. You're alone in a new place. You're gonna be okay, bud. And that was like the last time we ever spoke.
Do you
And
have
then
any?
literally like 2 weeks ago, his dad died. And I was like, do I want to reach out? Because I know how hard this is. And I dropped up this message, I sent it. He like asked me like, hey, like I saw you and sent a message. And then I decided to block him, just keep it in the past.
Ooh. Ooh. Yeah. Tough spot.
Yeah, I think it's important to go back and analyze our past failures. It's how I've been able to grow in my life. I don't know if this book will really materialize to anything or if anybody will resonate or like it or read it. But it's been a really healing thing for me, and I've had a lot of really weird stuff happen in my career.
Yeah. I give you credit for just sitting your ass down and writing some of it, because I've tried and it is so hard. It is really hard.
Yeah, it's draining
For
to
me
go
anyway.
back and
Yeah,
to like think of it all.
Well, and also like just the prose, finding the words and putting them together and
Yeah.
making sentences and making it something that you think is a good, conveys the message. I find rather, maybe you're gifted at that and it's kind of smooth for you. It ain't for me.
Thank you.
It's
It's a lot
just,
of like going back and reworking and reworking and reworking. And then like I'm also wondering like how deep do I get into my brother's story? Because that's so interwoven with mine. I do have a lot of, it's so easy for me to talk about what my brother went through.
sure.
It's so much harder for me to like admit that like I self-harmed, I burned myself, I had a suicide attempt. I don't talk about it. I
What?
never talk about it.
No?
No. I think part of it is because I want to have a political career, but the other part of me is like, well, there's an article about me in Out Magazine saying that I'm bisexual, so probably won't have a political career. I might as well just stick to being a bleeding heart liberal lobbyist for mental health stuff.
There was a woman who came on my show like 2 years ago. I had a show where people came on and told like 7-minute stories, but it was more curated. Not, it wasn't an open mic, and she was a gifted storyteller and a big producer. She's got like a successful business. And there was sort of a mental health theme, and she told this story dealing with suicide. It was very good, very powerful. About a year later, I followed up. And I said, I had a podcast, a second podcast that was really about the story stuff. I said, hey, I'm looking through some of my old recordings. I'd love to use your story that you shared. Then it was last year. And she said, you know what? I'm doing some stuff in the community and I'm working with certain organizations. I don't know if I'd want them to know about what I shared. And I got it. It made sense, but there was a part of me that was upset, not because it needed to be on my podcast. Like I have other stories I can choose, but I thought, what a shame. You're willing to talk about it. And in her case, gifted to talk about it in a way where people might resonate because of the storytelling craft. But I understand it, but I thought, but because of your aspirations in the world we live in, punishing people for being honest about just a thing in their life, fuck, like what the fuck? I'm not, it just,
I know.
like, are you kidding me? Like,
I was
you should be applauded for that.
I know. And it's also even more disheartening when like I was in this huge legislative meeting with the new CEO of NAMI, and she shared that she's a suicide survivor.
Wow.
And the legislator looked at her like she had 3 fucking heads. And he ended the meeting so quickly after that. Like you could tell just how uncomfortable he was and how he was physically cringing.
Wow.
And she completely lost legitimacy. And I was like, this is so fucked.
But we're preaching to choirs here, right? But yeah, I have just the opposite take. Like,
Mhm.
you should be applauded,
You should be listening to this person
and you should be
because they've
learning,
made
and
this
you should be
their life.
appreciating, and
Yeah.
well, I have a rather strong opinion, and I talk about this on my podcast. Most of it's me just engaging with somebody and they're talking. But one of my ongoing things is what kills the most people in the world. This is not provable. With respect to suicide, is not guns, and it is not this, and it is our inability to be okay with discomfort, and our inability or disinterest in learning how to engage in a way that just helps someone feel a little less shitty. If we could figure that out, you would see the suicide attempts. I'm not even talking about completions, because that's a different argument, really. We're talking about attempts. You would see that go down, I think, significantly. Of course, there are other things that would help too. I mean,
I also find that it's the acceptance of that person's silence, noticing that they're withdrawing, noticing that they're not themselves, and just thinking, oh, Jim's an introvert, like he's fine. And then you're shocked
right
when he's no longer there.
Right.
Even though everyone saw the warning sign.
Everybody, not always, but often, there's people in my life. I'm a kind of despite, so the one of the reasons there's several reasons why I started the podcast, but my best friend killed himself years and years ago.
Sorry.
Oh, it's all right. Yeah, but he was a cop, and back then you couldn't really talk about it, so didn't help. You would think of all the professions, cops or first responders should have a place to talk about their problems and pain. Well, all right, we know that maybe a little more now, oh, I forgot my point. Yeah. I was gonna say, like, I actually have never attempted suicide, but I feel there's also a little bit of guilt that I have, because I'm like, oh, I can't be doing this work because I'm not a survivor. But I say, fuck that. I'm not going to attempt suicide to make myself qualified to do the work. I'm just going to do the work. But for, I would say, like 20 years, I am 100% in this sort of, I don't know if is that an official diagnosis, CPSI, chronic passive suicidal ideation. It's actually,
I believe that is.
I don't know. And I was never diagnosed with it, but I think self-diagnosed 100%. I read the I'm like, check. And I think about people in my life, particularly one person who it's very unlikely I'm going to take my life, just to be completely it's not happening. But if I did, this person could not in good faith say I didn't see it coming.
Mm-hmm.
To get back to what you were saying earlier, and I understand that I'm doing some things that you would think, all right, people who are suicidal don't do that, so it's misleading, and I'm not suicidal, but there's a lot of things in my life, and you're like, if you're paying attention, you might say, at a minimum that warrants a conversation.
Yeah.
Right. But it's easier just to say, all right, he's fine. It's okay.
Oh yeah. And I'm ashamed to say that it took what my younger brother going through for me to wake up and to see it all.
Sure.
I just thought that he was tired.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
Well, he was in addition to all the other things. So he was tired. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah. You're for what I mean, not that you're comparing, but you're ahead of a lot of people, regardless of how you got there.
Yeah.
Now, if you ever want to come on the podcast, just so you know, I'd love to have you. The model, if that's the right word, is suicide attempt survivor. So in this case, you would be talking about you. I don't know if you ever want to do that, because you just made it clear you never do that. And of course, we could talk about your brother.
I think it's worth it to
wouldn't be
talk
just
about
him.
it.
Yeah, that'd be awesome if you trusted me.
I mean, I'm the CEO of a nonprofit.
Is that good or bad in terms of talking about it?
I think it's a little bit of both, but I also think I talk about it once and that's it. If you want to hear about it, you can listen to the podcast. Because a lot of my story is tied up in my brother's, which I think is a lot why I don't talk about it. He doesn't even know.
About your own attempt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't talk to him about my own mental health because I'm so worried that it will negatively affect his.
Mm,
So there's a lot of like protecting him.
yeah. Makes sense.
It would have never worked either. Like
Your attempt?
yeah, it was very pathetic. I tried to drown myself in my bathtub,
Drowning
and then
the-
I kept panicking, and then it just became a really bad panic attack.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if it's possible to drown yourself, number one, period.
I totally was convinced that I could.
That's what matters. I mean, we're not talking about how
Yeah.
good you are at it. We're just talking about what led you to it and what happened. And then after, I had a conversation with a woman recently. I'm editing this episode right now. So where when she was younger, like literally like 9. And I can tell you this because if you wanted to, you could hear it. It's public. She took a steak knife and tried to stab herself in the heart. And I said, "You're really bad at that. That's never going to work. You knew that." She's like, "Well, I know that now, but not at 9." I said, "Fair." I said, "You ain't killing yourself with a steak knife in the heart." But the point obviously was she didn't want to be alive.
Yeah.
Um,
I had to hide all of the sharp knives and scissors in my house from my brother after his
Yeah.
first attempt. And I'll never forget him looking at me and being like, "Where are the knives? I wanted to have a steak. Like I can't
Steak, right.
cut into it." And I was like, they're all dirty. I'll cut it for you." And it
Oh.
took me like 15 minutes with a butter knife
That's such an
to cut his
interesting.
dinner.
Wow, that's such an
I
interesting.
don't think I ever told him that I like hid them. I had my mom help me hide stuff and lock it away. Like I basically child-proofed our house from my like 20-something-year-old brother.
Well, are you older or younger?
I'm older. We're 5 years apart. So at the time that he had done his first attempt, he was 15.
So how many years went by from the first to the last?
I was 20. It was like every single year was a major attempt.
Until
And they
21?
got scarier when he was in college because he wouldn't let me go see him in the hospitals. I would just get like a phone call in the middle of the night from a doctor telling me that he had been hospitalized and I was his emergency contact
Mm,
and that he would call me when he could.
mhm.
And he would beg me not to go. And I would
What?
beg
You know
him
why?
to tell me where he was and let me come. He
Did
was
you ever learn
embarrassed.
why?
He was embarrassed.
Yeah.
Like we had a really great talk a year ago. I was like full on ugly crying because I always blame myself for his attempts. I thought it was my fault because I was the one who got out. I was the one who left the home
Mm,
and I left him there. And I knew that he really didn't like being home. My older brother, he has Asperger's syndrome. So he would joke and be like, "Oh, you're so gay." Gay being like an adjective, not understanding that like your brother's gay.
mhm,
You
mhm.
can't say that. That really hurts him. That causes him to self-harm. And so I felt like I had just damned him to that.
Mhm,
And we were barely in touch for like 2 or 3 years because I was
mhm.
like, I have to make it. I have to like be successful in the film industry so that I can pay for his college.
Oh,
Because
shit.
I didn't want him to go through what I went through, where I worked like 5 different jobs to put myself through college. And I'm very glad that I was able to put him through college.
Amazing. And now he's a goddamn professor. Jesus.
Well, in the making, in the making.
Well, I mean, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I'd love to. I mean, if you're open to it, and of course, zero pressure, but if you ever want to talk about it, I would just ask because I made a very conscious decision with this podcast. It wasn't a lost survivor podcast. It was a attempt survivor podcast. So, but I've had a couple of people I've talked to who are willing to talk about their own stuff, and as well as the loss part. But
Yeah, I could talk about how melodramatic I was and how I was falling apart while I was simultaneously trying to keep it together and be the sane one helping Mark.
yeah, that's interesting. That's really, really, really interesting. I feel so terrible because here and there someone will reach out, I guess, who hears it and they're like, I lost somebody. Can I be on? I have to say, like, it's not that kind. It's really about, if you've attempted or even if you've been real close.
I had a lot of
So I feel
suicidal
bad about it because there's
ideation
not
when he was going through it.
yeah,
But my attempt had happened around his same age in high
Yeah.
school. It
That-
was just, I feel really bad. Like, it was just really, really hard growing up with my mom. And even now, it's really, really difficult because she just doesn't accept that she has most likely bipolar disorder type 1, OCD. She has exercise orexia, which is
What
where
is
she
that?
compulsively exercises. She's stick thin.
Oh,
And also trichomania, where she rips her hair out.
oh man,
Yeah.
that's a woman that sounds like she needs some help.
Yeah. We've had interventions and begged her.
Not happening.
She's just too traumatized by what happened to my grandma.
Wow.
Yeah.
And if you don't have these conversations, people don't know it in this way. That's why I actually so love this podcast. I'm telling you, because you get to know things and the experience in a unique, different way that you just can't do in a tweet.
Yeah.
I don't care how poetic you are. You just don't get to it. You don't have the time. You don't have the, so it's kind of, yeah. Maybe I invite you, if that's a weird way of putting it, to listen to it once before you might.
I did.
Oh, you did? Okay.
I really enjoyed it.
People don't like my style, and I'm not going to apologize. I think I do a good job, but I actually, yeah.
No, I think it's a really good way to lay out how the story is, and you do a really good job at listening and coaxing the
Yeah, I
person.
try. I try to balance that, share a little bit. I'm always thinking you're right. There's a narrative of sorts that they might not know, but that I'm hearing. And I'm
Yeah.
trying to create a thread, I guess, for the listener, because it could be a lot. And I know I've heard a lot of podcasts myself, and it's like it's so easy to get lost.
Yeah.
So it's like, how do you have some glue inside of, sometimes I find myself going back and doing like a brief summary because I'm like, oh, if I, well, I appreciate that. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to keep it going.
I definitely think you should. I would love to list it on our resources page for people to
Okay.
tune in.
We recently went over 15,000 downloads a month. I'm very proud of that.
Congratulations.
I don't know if you know anything about podcasts, but that's kind of hard to do.
Yeah, no, I worked on the Heart of the Matter podcast with Elizabeth Vargas.
They have a lot more. But I'm just a random dude in North Carolina. I have no one helping me.
Initially,
There's no
we
team. There's
had,
no team. It's really hard to like. There's an exception, but usually if you hear any podcast with some like real, like a lot of listenership, at the end or in the show notes, you'll see like who's helping, and it's a list of like 12 people.
Yeah.
Editor, I'm the 12 people. Just me.
With that podcast, we hype it up and make it seem like it's bigger than it is. There's
Sure.
only like 3 people working on it.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's like,
Wait,
there's
what's
a
the name of it?
researcher, Heart of the Matter with Elizabeth Vargas.
Are you still doing that?
I am not. I got laid off from partnership, but they still have the people that I booked for her for this season being interviewed, which is like funny. Oh my God, I should reach out to Mary Lambert. She's a suicide survivor and she's a double platinum recording artist. and she's in recovery. I should see if she'd be interested in doing your podcast.
Yeah, the only
She's
thing I'd say with
incredible.
famous people, and it's not famous people, I have people you know how like if you have a podcast that has a little bit of a following, you start getting people like publicists reaching out. And
I could hook you up with her directly. I know her.
yeah, no, that's cool. The only
Yeah.
thing I say is you've got to be willing to talk about the thing and not just your accomplishments. And I think
Oh,
that's
she talks about her attempts. She
Good.
had 2 major ones. She also talks about being hospitalized. She's an incredible advocate.
Awesome.
I'm really, really fortunate to know her. She's also a really staunch LGBT advocate. She just got married in November to her girlfriend.
Oh, sweet. That's awesome. I'm looking right now at the reviews of your show. And I'm comparing how many. Do they have more reviews than I have?
Stuck up.
When did it start?
It's only been around for 2 years.
Yeah, mine's just a little older.
It's been really inconsistent with like the uploads and getting the schedule. And then Elizabeth gets mad because the guests don't share.
I see it's bi-weekly-ish.
Yeah, they went on a really long hiatus because they laid off like the whole podcast team. And then they were like, oh crap, we have like all this stuff that we've recorded that we need to edit. So I don't know if it's going to be ending or not. She's
they
going to
have
be
like
on
60 episodes, right? 55 episodes.
Yeah. She has a new show on News Nation, which is going to be on 6 o'clock, I believe, every night. And she wants to have a segment talking about mental health. So I was thinking of getting in touch with her, see how she's doing, and see if there's any synergy there.
What are your thoughts on this idea of partnership to end addiction? What is that? What do you
organization has gone through 20 different name changes. I'm not even kidding. They also did that really like insulting this is your brain on drugs PSA.
Oh, was that them?
Yeah, that's them. I think it's a really dumb name, honestly.
What do you think of the idea of ending addiction? Well, let me reframe that.
I think it sets people up for failure, and it doesn't acknowledge the fact that illicit drug use does exist in our society, and that's why we need to accept it and have harm reduction measures. And we need to address people's mental health and treat them like human beings.
The 90%.
Like the organization really seems to just want to focus on like white suburban moms who are trying to help their like beautiful like prom queen daughter. And they only now have been like, oh shit, we need to like incorporate more like other people. And it's like, other people?
I don't know if it's a fair comparison, but there's a very large contingent in the world of suicide. And you'll hear this it's all about suicide prevention, which I understand. I get it. And there's a subset of that. I actually have very strong feelings about prevention, but maybe conversation for another day. But then there's zero, whatever their goal is, like no more suicide, zero with something.
Yeah,
and I'm like,
zero suicides by 2030.
I'm like, I unfortunately sometimes get very like sort of confused. I have the idea up here. I can't articulate it, but there's something about that upsets me a lot. Of course, ideally in a perfect world, people aren't killing themselves because they don't suffering. Sure. But there's something that doesn't work for me about it, especially when it's very hard. I see people, speakers, they get paid a lot of money, which I have no problem with at all. But they're spouting this stuff. And I'm like, I don't think I agree with you. There's something about it that just doesn't sit well.
No, I agree.
I guess different points of view are healthy, but I don't. Wow.
It also upsets me that there's this division in the recovery community that if you die by an overdose, it's either you were poisoned and this was a fentanyl poisoning and this sweet, like, white baby girl would have like never done drugs. She was poisoned.
But she got unfortunate, and it was unfortunate, and it was laced with fentanyl.
Yeah, and like the bad people, like her bad friends gave it to her. And then there's the, oh well, they died. But like they're from that part of town. And then there's the people that just can't admit that like some people die of overdoses because they're trying to kill themselves and they succeeded.
Yeah, of course.
And like no one in the recovery community wants to talk about that part of it.
The fact that some of them are dying of sort of slow suicide or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. They're like, oh no, like they're just succumbing to the disease of addiction. Okay, but like, what is addiction?
Yeah.
Why are they using? Oh well, it's because they're addict. No, come on, like get to it. Give me the real answer.
What do you think what do you want to hear?
I want to hear that is because they're in pain, is because they feel othered, they don't feel supported, and they're trying to fill this void with anything that prevents them from feeling, from really having to feel. And they're trying to create happiness, which is so idealized in our society for themselves.
So idealized. Oh, yeah. It's so interesting to hear that. But you're probably in the minority. Your voice will be sort of the powers that be. I mean, I'm sure most of them are well intentioned. I give them credit for trying, but yeah. I think the only thing that I like is that, well, not the only thing, but it's kind of cool. This is the first time I've ever I was really involved with story stuff. I was a teacher, but like high school fucking social studies, whatever. When I got involved in the story stuff and in this podcast stuff, it's like the first time in my life really where I have people messaging me like saying, dude, seriously, thank you. Like I had it a little bit. And maybe that's a part of your life. It wasn't really a part of my life. And so some of the messages I get, you're like, oh my God, like it actually doesn't really, in some ways it matters less to me what the sort of common narrative is, or it matters, but when you get that direct, you're like, oh, cool. Like what Johnny in Cincinnati, what doesn't like, oh, thanks for reaching out. Thanks for letting me know that. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, I've had people reach out in the DMs where they're like, I'm afraid of relapsing. I'm feeling suicidal. And I try to talk them through it. And my goal is to get them to a hotline, whether it be the crisis text line, whether it be 211, whether it be like 988 or the Trevor Project.
Strong feelings about those. Trevor Project will keep things under wraps. They will not call someone on you.
Yeah.
As far as I know. The others will. And that might be what? No, yeah, I believe so. No?
I thought 211 mainly would do like resources, food pantries,
sure,
where to get clothing, different things like that.
All right, well, let me share something. So I was a crisis text line counselor.
They report to the
741-741, not 988. Oh, we had to flag anybody that answered yes to the 4 questions, imminent risk questions.
Oh my God.
And there's a lack of transparency, right? We're going to tell you what we're going to do.
I'm not going to tell you. Oh my God.
So wait, why wouldn't you tell me if I answered yes? Well, because you're not going to tell us. Well, but what's the whole fucking point of this? Like, are you tricking me into saying something so cops come? I don't like it. I'm not a fan of it. I understand the like larger reasons why. I'm not trying
to. What about 988 and the suicide hotline?
Oh, exactly the same. Now, I don't know exactly how things work in terms of who's receiving the call and who they're. I texted 988, forgive me for this, as a test, and they botched it fucking huge. And I said, hey, what's like, and I she asked me, she wasn't very good. And I said, what I want to know is what happens if I tell you I'm suicidal? Please tell me, I'm doing my text here. What happens if I tell, that this should be a secret? And she would deflect it.
Oh,
Well,
wow.
I said, well, no, but what I understand is that as imminent risk there, because a lot of people know this, so it's not as if I 4 questions, and if I answer yes to all of them, that's an objective measure as far as objective. And she's and I have the text. I'm not to prove it to you, but it's astounding because she said something like, if we think that you are, and I was like, oh, so this is way more subjective. So if you just deem me a risk, not just answering yes, 741, I would have to ask, are you had to? I don't remember the exact words. Are you having thoughts of suicide? If they said no, done. If they said yes, it was question 2, whatever, I forgot, right? Like, do you have a plan? If it was no, done, move on to something else. If it was yes, question 3, then question set. This seemed like if I think, whoa, that's a lot of power you have.
So what would you,
That
are
was
there other resources like Trevor Project for people to reach out?
988 is the savior. Everyone loves it. Do you realize that's what's happening in 988? Just know it. I'm not saying it's not.
No.
Just fucking know what's happening. You should know. So you go there, you're honest, what happened? Now, when that happens and someone comes to your door, we don't learn about it.
So
Nobody
then is
learns
this
about
just
it.
bullshit with like, so I've been in these meetings with our legislators talking about 988, talking about getting 988 printed on student ID cards so that they know to call it.
Sure.
And I don't know if this is because we're also talking about Daniel's Law, but we're trying to distinct 988 in New York that it is a non-police response.
Well,
That it's a behavioral
could it
health
be
response.
could it be state by state where it's different in New York than here?
It's possible because I know we are trying to reroute mental health calls from 911 to 988, which is still an issue.
What's the
We're
difference?
trying to make it so that if they are in imminent harm, EMS is dispatched.
That's where I can't comment. I don't know.
Ideally, we would like behavioral health members and peers, but
Yeah.
we're waiting for Daniel's Law, which has been in limbo for 3 years.
I think I'm sure you know this, one of the ongoing challenges is you just don't have enough people on the ground. So
And
what's
then
if it's not
send
AMS,
police.
what's the second best? Police. Are they trained? Maybe, hopefully, but sorry, someone's going to kill themselves. We got to send.
So in the public hearing, they said that, I think their statistic was that 84% of police officers are trained. They go through a 15-minute video training.
Yeah. So stop.
And then they're asked questions for 5 minutes before their shift.
Stop. That's not training. That's insulting.
No.
So what also happens though is,
And NAMI also tried to do a comprehensive training, and they got to like 90%, and they deemed it was a failure because the officers got nothing out of it.
nothing. I mean, we could also talk about the whole police culture and why they don't have to give a shit,
Yeah.
and the kind of people it attracts after having sort of militant environment for 30 years. Who are you attracting? Well, you're attracting a certain kind of person who's probably less inclined to give a shit about that. I don't know that for sure. Maybe New York is different than Montana. But it also should be said, and I don't know if this is state by state, county by county. I should probably know more before I talk about it. What happens when they take you to a hospital?
I mean, 9 times out of 10, aren't you, like, at least in New York, we don't have enough psych beds.
All right,
So you're waiting on a stretcher in a hallway to get a room.
okay,
And then once you get a room, you have to be rerouted to the behavioral health center. So then you're in a hallway again. But then if you go past the 72-hour hold, you're just released.
oh, okay. So my
And you
experience,
could potentially have never seen a doctor.
yeah. And are you billed for that?
Probably.
I mean, come on, man. You can't tell. I'm not trying to simplify something because economics get really, really tricky, but you can't tell me you give a shit about somebody's mental health when you force them to go somewhere and then bill them a lot of money. Stop. Sorry.
Yeah.
Stop. I mean, I went to a psych center for a week, 2 days in the ER, 5 days in the sort of psych unit. Was never really sure if I had to go. My therapist wasn't clear, another weird thing, but that was him. And then I got back, they changed my meds, whatever, didn't do shit. Got back and got like an $11,000 bill. I was like, so what I did, because whatever, I was like, fuck you, not happening. My credit's already shitty, don't care. And I think it's disgusting. Now, I don't know if it was not billed, would we have other issues like fewer beds? Probably. I don't even know. Build more beds. I don't like, come on. Why do they have like 12 beds? Or however many beds. I was in a room with a recovering heroin addict.
Oh my God.
Now let that sink in for a second. Not only that, and I am not, this is not hyperbole. My first night there, he was hallucinating, as I think is fairly common for someone who's coming in, and he was threatening me, threatening people that he thought were coming in. He was not well. The guy needed a space to recover, just not with me. Very bad. I paid for that. I paid for what's the equivalent of probably like a really nice hotel in New York City per night.
Yeah.
What? Does that seem weird to you? A little bit.
A lot of it. Yeah.
The only way I would have gotten really good care is if I was fucking loaded.
Mm-hmm.
And I could go to like Palm Springs or somewhere and hang out on a really beautiful space, sure. Yeah, those are available for like very wealthy people.
Yeah. And then you
Anyway,
could just go through the revolving door and not really get qualitative care, but you could at least tell your manager that you went to treatment and you got help
you saw
and
both.
got some nice massages and facials.
Now, here's the sort of bigger issue I think of is one, next time I'm going through something, if there's a next time, am I going back there? Probably not.
Yeah.
Is there a better place to go? I don't think so. Two, if somebody I know who's struggling, would I suggest they go there? Probably not.
No.
Now, where do they go? There's nowhere to go. Not that I know of. There might be a new place somewhere. I don't know. How do I even? So that to me, if that's not a crisis,
I know. I don't know what is.
for real, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm going to learn more about 988 before I just immediately give it I just had a bad experience with them. But I can't say definitively that, like, maybe you're right. Maybe there were never going to be cops coming. Like, maybe I'm wrong because they didn't say cops, obviously. They said, like,
I know some people unfortunately have been mixing it up where they think they're calling 988, but they're calling 911 and then cops are dispatched. So, I mean, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. It's astronomical.
but it's just what I don't mind seeing the things where people say to call 988 and there's hope around it or optimism, but
Mhm.
you still have to be grounded in some truth or some like, and all of the major, as far as I see, because because of Facebook is Facebook and the algorithms, I see it.
Yeah.
The American Suicide Prevention and this, like, I see their messaging. And I spoke at NAMI, North Carolina. I actually did, it was interesting. Actually didn't really speak there. I did my podcast there live.
That's awesome.
It was really cool. And then there was a little brief Q&A. But even them everywhere. And I get it, like 988, 988, 988, 988. And I had to bite my tongue. All right. It's maybe better than it was. But
Long way to go.
yeah. But you're nicer than I am. I'm more of the jerk. I am. Maybe both. Maybe the world needs both.
I think so.
Like the sort of jerk, angry guy who
Yeah.
and then you're like nicer, and I don't know, maybe you're not nice. Maybe you're more diplomatic or tactful. I don't know. So, thanks for talking
Yeah, definitely. I'm really glad we got to connect.
and telling your story earlier. And let's connect. Do I have your email?
And
What do you
I
want?
believe you have my number.
I have both. Staten Island. I'm not going to visit you. Don't worry. So I'm not going to show up on your door. But I don't want to put any like weird pressure. But will you reach? So let me know how you want to proceed, whether it's respect to your work.
No, I'd
or
like
the
to be on the
podcast.
podcast.
All right. So then let me send you. I sent everybody the same like 2-page document. There's questions, and you have an idea if you heard it, and just some basic things. And then we'll set up a time to talk, and then we'll keep talking about other stuff. Is that cool?
Yeah, sounds great. Thank you.
Of course. No, thank you. And thanks for listening.
Yeah, same to you.
All right.
Enjoy the rest of your night.
It'll be sleep, but you too.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Bye, Alexandra. Take care.
You too.